Hey everybody, how are you? Thank you so much for being here on our little YouTube channel. Boy, fantasy draft season is really close, and really excited to be talking with you now before the drafts, and then of course all season long as well. Thank you for watching. We're brought to you today by Lisa. Great mattresses that I'll tell you more about later in the show. I want to thank up top here, producer Dave Pyper, for doing an amazing job on all of these videos, all preseason long. So if you're familiar with my work, you may know that for almost 2 decades, I've been doing flag players, flag planted players, players I'm planting a flag on. And if you listen to the podcast, you can hear my full list of 10 flag players for 2025. Today, I'm going to give you 5. These are my most must draft players, if that's a thing. Is that a thing? I don't know if it's a thing, but these are guys that up and down the draft, I'm trying to give you options, choices in different areas in your draft. Hopefully you can take and get some pretty good value out of them. At number 5, it's the man called Cartavius. That's actually Tank Bigsby's real first name. He was coming off of a disappointing rookie year in 2023, but Bsby, he entered last year way behind Travis Etienne on the Jacksonville rushing depth chart. Yup, he deserved it, rightly so. Etienne was coming off an awesome 2023 season, but the tables kind of turned pretty quickly. Etienne looked worse in 24. Bigsby looked a lot better. Obviously, not that much overall went right for the Jags last year, but after beginning the season on kickoff returns, Bigsby established himself as a much more physical presence, showing a willingness to take punishment and not try and avoid all hits like Etienne tends to do, bouncing everything outside. At the goal line, Bigsby outtouched Etienne 7-3. I'd say overall, you probably got way better value if you took Bigsby last year. Now, Bigsby also battled nagging injuries late in the year and also kept fumbling, so I'm not painting him as a sure thing. The Jags have a new coach. They drafted Bashul Tootin in the middle rounds. I guess he could get in the mix. And despite having 1 year left on his deal, Etienne is still around. This is clearly unclear. A potential 3-headed backfield on an offense being reinvented by new coaches. But that's okay because Cartavius will only cost you a 10th round pick. He was Jacksonville's best running back last year, so let's stash him away and see how things go. The next player we love drafting, it seems like he's getting a lot of hype, but so far his ADP hasn't really risen all that much. It's second-year Niners wideout Ricky Pearsall. Here's another fantasy bench guy, another player I like a lot who won't cost you a starting spot in a fantasy draft. At least as of my recording this, Pearsall goes in something like the 8th round. And if you play on ESPN, it's more like the 9th or even the 10th. As you'd expect with a dude who won't be drafted to be a fantasy starter, there are no guarantees with Pearsall. His situation has a lot of uncertainty. The 49ers had a terrible year last year. They turned over a lot of their roster. Brandon Ayuk tore an ACL, going to miss the beginning of the year, but could be back to reassume the top status in that receiving core around mid-season. Juwan Jennings was valiant, trying to keep the thing afloat last year. Christian McCaffrey is presumably back. George Kittle is still there. It's chaos, I tell you. Too many mouths to feed. Abort, abort, abort. Except if you know me, you know I think too many mouths to feed and really diagnosing situations beforehand as if we know exactly what's going to happen is a foolish way to think about this stuff. Draft good players. I think Ricky Pearsall might be a really good player. He lost a bunch of training camp last year to injuries. Then he got shot, obviously costing him a lot of the season's beginning. And by the time he was back in action, things were already falling apart with the Niners. Pearsall understandably needed a while to get chemistry going with Brock Purdy. But there's good stuff on his late season tape. I think Pearsall runs, for example, a pretty good dig route, and you can see how explosive he is after the catch. He had a couple of awesome hands catches in 2024. I'm envisioning him getting open running that deep dig that Brock Purdy likes to throw, and then zipping up the middle and producing some big gains. Again, no sure things in the 8th round, but Pearsall is a favorite of mine to draft. Okay, so we'll get back to the must-draft players in just a moment. I want to thank Lisa for sponsoring these videos all throughout August. We absolutely could not have done it without them, and I am a Lisa sleeper. I sleep on a Lisa mattress every single night. If you've been waking up stiff or sore and haven't been able to figure out why, it might just be your mattress. If it's been a while since you've gotten a new one, I recommend Lisa. I think their mattresses are great. You can find multiple mattress feels on their website. The best part is no shopping, no mattress superstore, no sitting on 10 mattresses for 30 seconds a piece and then picking one and having a week to decide if you like it. With Leesa, get a mattress delivered direct to your door, sleep on it for 100 nights, and if after more than 3 months you decide, it's not for me, tell them, get a refund. They'll come pick it up. No questions asked. And Leesa's Labor Day sale is happening now. Get 30% off all mattresses site-wide. And if you check out using the code Harris, they'll take an extra $50 off the top. Leesa.com for 30% off and use that code Harris. Okay, so let's keep counting down the must-draft players for 2025. Up next on the list, the man we call Chuba. That's right, it's Chuba Hubbard. I kind of want to be mad at myself for not seeing Chuba Hubbard's great 2024 season coming, but then I remember 2 consecutive coaching staffs in Carolina didn't see it coming either. Hubbard didn't produce a lot in his first 3 years. That's probably because nobody would have. The Panthers' offense at quarterback and offensive line was just broken. But as soon as new coach Dave Canales unbroke it, along with some interior offensive line signings, Hubbard had a little more space to run, and he certainly ran. Maybe not amazing at any single thing, but very good at everything. Hubbard became a rock-solid RB2 throughout last season. Good lateral quickness, good power, decent long speed. A tough dude who was never supposed to find himself in this position, but Christian McCaffrey got traded. Miles Sanders stunk. Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL again. And here's Hubbard with a good-sized contract, and good for him, the unquestioned starter in Carolina. And yet in drafts this year, Hubbard goes at the end of the 4th round. I have him ranked higher than that, but I'm always going to try and read the room and get him around where he's going. And that's 4th round's a really good place to get your RB2 for fantasy. It gives you flexibility to even potentially mess around with a star at one of the onesie positions in the 2nd or 3rd round, or just go running back, wide receiver, which, depending on which players are available when you pick, could turn out really, really good. Anyway, also really, really good, Chuba Hubbard. Very tough physical player, and I like him. At number 2, I've got Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I've wound up with JSN in the 3rd round over and over and over in drafts. You wouldn't say that the 3rd round is exactly a sleeper, right? But that's not what this video is. I'm talking about players I love drafting. JSN is one of those. I think he's completely locked in as a number 2 fantasy wideout, and I give him a pretty decent shot at getting up into the number 1 level. And maybe now you're saying, I don't know, what kind of ceiling does a guy have who led the world in slot percentage the past 2 years? I get that, especially based on his rookie year, 2023. It was fair to wonder that because JSN rarely went down the field. Last year, though, that started to change, and JSN started to convince me that he has what it takes to be a primary weapon at all 3 levels. Much like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Smith-Njigba is super smooth. You watch him get to the top of his route, and his suddenness just keeps defensive backs completely off balance. He's open immediately after he cuts. Not a big guy, but incredibly, incredibly smooth. Okay, yes, Seattle's offense is in flux. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they're gone. They have a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. We've been told over and over and over, they gave Clint Kubiak orders. He has to emphasize the run more. And all I can say to that is, everyone who keeps repeating that to you, stop listening to them. There's no team in the NFL that doesn't throw it enough to make their top wideout good for fantasy if the quarterback and the wide receiver are good. It's just bad analysis. This is a passing league. Everybody passes it 25 times or more. Literally everyone. And most teams pass it more than 30 times per game. So stop with the Clint Kubiak stuff as a reason not to draft JSN. Now, ask yourself whether Sam Darnold is good. That's fair. He had a strong year in Minnesota last year, right up until he didn't. And if the magic dust on Darnold wears off, that could be a problem for the Seahawks receivers. Ask yourself if Cooper Kupp can coexist with JSN, since both guys are used to running out of the slot. Also a fair question. I just keep coming back to JSN is ultra smooth. In the 3rd round, I am very happy to grab him. And my number 1 must-draft player for 2025, based on where he gets drafted, you're not shocked. It's the Jack Gerbil, Josh Jacobs. I cannot understand why there are so many NFL and fantasy analysts who 6 years into Josh Jacobs' career are still not convinced he's an excellent player. It's just wild. On a bad Raiders team, Jacobs had a 1,600-yard rushing season and 2 seasons of 12 touchdowns. He catches it pretty well for a big dude. He's a menace near the goal line. Maybe it just comes down to he's not a true breakaway threat. Is that why you get knuckleheads fading Jacobs every year? Like they see his top-end miles per hour and it breaks their spreadsheets? Going into last year, the refrain was, well, they wouldn't have drafted Marshawn Lloyd if they weren't going to use him. And then it turns out they absolutely drafted Marshawn Lloyd and did not use him. Oh, well, Matt LaFleur never uses a primary back. Yeah, it turns out when Matt LaFleur doesn't think any of his running backs are amazing, he'll spread the work around. And then when he gets an amazing running back, he mostly uses that guy. So what's the argument against him for 2025? He's too powerful? The Packers drafting a receiver in the first round means they're never going to run again? I don't know. But I know, in my mind, given his upside and his safe floor, Jacobs, I think, should be a first-round pick for fantasy. I have him number 7 overall in standard scoring, probably something like number 9 in half PPR. But on most every platform, Jacobs is at best a middle of the second-round pick, which feels like stealing. I've picked in the late first or even the middle first in a bunch of drafts, either 6, 7, 8 or 9, 10, 11. And when my pick comes up, by the letter of my ranks, I should pick Jacobs. He's the next guy. But I have found myself usually rolling the dice, going with someone else, and then hoping Jacobs gets back around to me in the second round. And by golly, he always does. And to me, that feels like getting 2 first-round picks. And I like getting 2 first-round picks, so I'm going to wind up with Jacobs a lot yet again. So those are our 5 must-draft players for YouTube. I have some other ones over on the podcast. Flag list is technically 10 players, so there's some later round guys you can check out if you want to listen to the podcast at harrisfootball.com. Tell me your potential must-draft players, given their ADP, their value and stuff. Tell me down in the comments. I'd love to know. I want to thank Lisa for sponsoring. I want to thank Dave Pyper once again for being a wonderful producer. Let me remind you that if you're only just getting back into fantasy draft season, you're not alone, and you certainly can check out the podcast at harrisfootball.com. Also, I have a great big player profile almanac. It's like 110,000 words. It has a profile on anybody you're thinking of drafting. It came out on August 1st, but there's going to be an update on August 29th, right before Labor Day weekend. So you can get reading it now and then get an update with lots of new stuff that happened in August. You can find that also at harrisfootball.com. We would love it if you'd like this video. Just take a moment. We'd love it if you're not subscribed. Please subscribe. That's awesome too. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button. Write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.